Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Class 8. Today we are discussing the numericals of lesson number 7, sound. So numerical 1 is two waves A and B of the same pitch have amplitudes in the ratio 2:3. What will be the ratio of their pitch and loudness? So here it is written in the question that both are having the same pitch. So the ratio of their pitch will be 1:1 because they are having the same pitch. And we know that pitch depends on frequency and not on amplitude. So whatever is the amplitude, it doesn't matter. If they are having the same pitch, means they are having the same frequency, so the ratio of their pitch will be 1:1. Now second is what will be the ratio of their loudness. So loudness of wave A upon loudness of wave B equals to 2/3 whole square. As we know that loudness equals to square of amplitude. So what will be the answer? 2 into 2 will be 4 and 3 into 3 will be 9. So their ratio is 4:9. Now next is two waves have amplitude 6 cm and 4 cm respectively. Compare their loudness. Which of the two sounds is louder? So amplitude of first wave is 6 cm and of second wave is 4 cm, and we know that loudness equals to square of amplitude. So loudness of first wave upon loudness of second wave equals to 6/4 whole square, that is 36/16. Reduce them, the answer is 9/4. 4 nines are 36 and 4 fours are 16. So answer is 9/4 or 9:4. Now which sound is louder? Sound of the first wave with amplitude 6 cm is louder. As we know that larger amplitude, louder is the sound produced. Now these are the long question answers of lesson number 8, electricity. Question number 1 is how is power transmitted from the power generating station to the consumer? Now transmission of power from the generating station to the consumer. So electricity is generated at the power generating stations, and these power stations are connected to one another with a network of cables known as grids. So the electric power stations, they generate electricity at 11,000 volt or 11 kilovolt potential and with an alternating frequency of 50 Hz. Its polarity at the terminals changes 100 times a second, 50 times plus and 50 times minus. Then the power generated at the electric power stations is transmitted to the grid substations, which are over long distances, and at the grid substation the alternating voltage is increased from 11 kilovolt to 132 kilovolt by using step up transformer. Then from the grid substation the electric power is transmitted to the main substation, and at this station this alternating voltage is stepped down from 132 kilovolt to 33 kilovolt, and this electric power is transmitted to heavy industries and intermediate substations. Now at the intermediate substations, the voltage is further stepped down from 33 kilovolt to 11 kilovolt by using step down transformer, and this electric power is transmitted to light industries, that is small industries and city substations. Now at the city substation, the alternating voltage of electric power is further stepped down from 11 kilovolt to 220 volt by using step down transformer, and this 220 volt electric power enters our homes for daily consumption. Now question 2 is how is consumption of electricity measured by an electric meter? So there is a disc in the electric meter which rotates when the electric energy is consumed, and the speed of the rotation of the disc depends on the power consumed. The number of revolutions of the disc give the energy consumed, and the total number of revolutions they are counted by a special counter of the electric meter, and these revolutions can be read from 5 dials on the meter, which is called meter reading. Now if we have to check the electrical energy consumed in a month, we have to check the meter reading in the beginning and at the end of the month, and we have to take the difference of the two readings. This difference will give the amount of energy consumed in kilowatt hour, which is also known as units, and The consumption of electrical energy depends on the power of electrical appliances and also on the time for which they are used. Thus, the electric energy consumed can be measured by an electric meter. Now, question number 3 is describe the hazards of electricity. Write any 5 safety precautions that should be taken while using electricity. The hazards of electricity are overloading of an electric circuit. When a large number of electrical appliances are operated together, they draw a large current. And due to the flow of heavy current, what happens? The overheating of the electrical wiring in any circuit takes place, and this is called overloading of an electric circuit. It may lead to short circuiting and electric fire. Now, second is short circuiting. Sometimes the live and the neutral wires in a circuit, they come in contact with each other due to defective or damaged wiring. So the resistance of the circuit almost becomes zero and a very large current flows through it. This is called short circuiting and it may lead to an electric fire. Then is electric shock. When a person touches a live wire, he or she gets an electric shock, and sometimes this shock can even kill a person. Now, 5 safety measures that should be taken while using electricity are: number 1, good quality wires of proper current capacity and covered with good insulating material should be used. Number 2, plugs, sockets and switches should also be of good quality to avoid fire due to heat produced in them. Number 3, fuse wire of proper rating and material should be used in each circuit. Number 4, all connections in the circuit must be tight. Number 5, all electrical appliances must be earthed to prevent an electric shock. Now, fourth is, what is a pith ball electroscope? How can you use it to check whether the object is charged or uncharged and to identify the nature of charge on the object? A pith ball electroscope consists of a lightweight and small non-conducting pith ball suspended by a dry silk thread from an insulating stand. So, you have to draw this figure also. Now, to check whether the object is charged or uncharged, bring the object to be tested near the pith ball. When the pith ball is attracted by the object is charged. But when the pith ball is not attracted, the object is uncharged. Next is to identify the nature of charge on the object. So charge the pith ball positively by conduction. Now bring the charged object near the pith ball. When the pith ball moves away, the object is positively charged as like charges repel each other. When it moves towards the object is negatively charged as unlike charges attract each other. Question number 5 is describe the construction of a gold leaf electroscope with a label diagram. So this is the diagram of the gold leaf electroscope. Draw it properly, neatly and label it. Now construction. A gold leaf electroscope consists of a brass rod fitted with 2 gold foils at its one end and a metal disc which is a brass disc at its other end. The brass rod passes through the insulating rubber plug that is fixed at the mouth of a glass jar. It protects the gold leaves from outside air current. And the thin gold leaves are very delicate and sensitive. They can detect even a very small charge. The lower part of the glass jar is surrounded by metal foils from inside. These foils, they greatly improve the action of the gold leaves. When the electroscope is used, these metal foils are earthed. Now question number 6 is, how is a gold leaf electroscope used to check the presence of charge on an object and to identify the nature of charge? Number 1 is to check the presence of charge on an object using uncharged gold leaf electroscope. When the given object A is touched with the metal disc of uncharged electroscope, then when there is no movement in the gold leaves, it means object A is uncharged, and when the leaves diverge, object A is charged. It is because when A is charged, its charge is shared by the disc, metal rod and the leaves. Due to the presence of like charges on the leaves, they diverge. Now next is to identify the nature of charge. Take a gold leaf electroscope which is positively charged. Now touch the object A to the metal disc of the electroscope and observe the movement of gold leaves and gap between them carefully. When the gap between the leaves increases, it means the charge on object A is positive. When the gap between the leaves decreases, it means the charge on object A is negative. And this is the figure for this. Draw this also, and similarly the testing can be done by charging the electroscope negatively. On touching the object A to be tested with brass disc of the negatively charged electroscope, when the gap between the gold leaves increases, the object A is negatively charged. When the gap between the gold leaf decreases, the object A is positively charged. And this figure you have to draw for this. Now question 7 is describe the construction and working of a lightning conductor. Now construction of a lightning conductor, it consists of a long rod of iron or copper with a number of sharp, long, pointed spikes at the top end. This rod runs from the top to the bottom along the outer wall of the tall building to be protected. The lower end of the rod is connected to a metallic plate. It is usually made of copper that is buried deep inside the earth to provide a good connection. Now working. When a charged cloud passes over the building fitted with lightning conductor, then due to the process of induction, an opposite charge is induced on the spikes. This charge passes to the earth through a copper rod. This prevents the lightning strike and thus saves the building from being damaged.